Welcome back to Samvad. I am Subhash Jangala, Joint Director in the Directorate General of Administration and Taxpayer Services. We have with us here today Ms. Deepika Mittal, Commissioner of Income Tax at the Centralized Processing Center, TDS. In the second part of this TDS session, aimed at our deductors, we shall be discussing the most important aspects pertaining to TDS statements, short deductions, and refunds. Ma'am, as we all know, the TCS return is a quarterly statement submitted by deductors, and it contains details of all the tax that has been deducted and the tax that has been deposited by the deductors in the government account. Can you please explain the modes of filing the original or the correction TDS return?
Subhash, original TDS and TCS statements can be filed both in offline and online mode. In offline mode, they can be filed at the various TIN facilitation centers which are there all over the country, and on the online mode, they can be filed at the e-filing website. Correction statements, again in the offline mode, they can be filed at TIN facilitation centers, and online corrections can be filed at the e-filing website and also at the traces port.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, now, no matter where a deductor files his statement, it's processed in traces. Okay. So, is it necessary or is it compulsory for a deductor to file a correction statement even though the late filing fees and interest have already been paid?
In order to remove defaults pertaining to late payment interest and late filing fee, a deductor needs to file an online correction at traces and add the corresponding challan using the add challan to statement functionality. A specific functionality has been provided for this purpose.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, even in certain cases where we have seen that even after updating a valid PAN, sometimes this error of short deduction is arising due to PAN in Annexure 1 of Form 24Q. So, how can a deductor really resolve this?
See, for this you need to understand Form 24Q. Form 24Q has two parts: Annexure 1, which gives the deductive-wise breakup of the challan, the TDS challan, and Part 2 contains the total breakup of salary. Now, for rectification of a short deduction demand, the deductor needs to input a valid PAN against a corresponding deductive row in Annexure 2, since the short deduction demand in case of 24Q is computed on the basis of the details given in Annexure 2. That is the salary breakup.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, in certain cases wherein there's a short deduction in a particular TDS statement, now let's say the taxpayer has included that income in his return, paid the tax, and then the return has been processed as well. Now, is there a way to rectify this short deduction demand that is existing now?
Specific forms have been notified for the purpose. Form 26A or 27BA need to be furnished by the deductor, and these need to be this can be done by logging into the traces website, and they have to be furnished against the deductee rows which show the particular default.
Ma'am, in case there's a demand raised against a particular TAN, where should a deductor or a collector go to find the details or the computation of this demand that has been raised?
Registered deductors can view demand against all their TANs by downloading the justification report of the statement, which is available on their login. So, for this they need to log in on the traces portal, go to the dashboard and look at under the option total outstanding demand. From there they can get details of all the outstanding demand against a particular statement.
Ma'am, in certain cases we have also seen that deductors had received an intimation of short deduction. And in those cases, the deductee had a certificate of lower deduction of taxes. So, how do you resolve this issue, or what are the steps that a deductor has to take in these circumstances?
In such cases, a deductor has to file a correction statement validating the certificate number, the validity of the certificate rate, and the PAN-TAN combination mentioned in the certificate for the no deduction or low deduction.
Ma'am, and there are certain cases where there are mismatches of challans during the processing of a TDS statement. In that circumstance, can you explain the process of downloading the console file for a deductor?
See, a console file is never available in case of unmatched challans found during processing. So, to be able to download a console file, a deductor has to match the challan using the online challan correction functionality available at the traces. Once it becomes a matched challan, then only they can download the console file.
And ma'am, now the next question that I wanted to ask you was, is it always mandatory to file Annexure 1 and 2 of Form 24Q for Q4 for downloading Part A and B of Form 16 from the Traces portal?
Explained earlier, Form 24Q has two parts. Annexure 1 gives you the deductive-wise breakup of the TDS challan, and Annexure 2 gives you the details of the salary breakup. So, Form A of the TDS certificate is based on the details furnished in Annexure 1, and Part B is generated from Annexure 2. Hence, both the annexures are essential to be filed.
Ma'am, in certain circumstances, we have also seen issues wherein once the TDS statement or TDS certificates were downloaded in a zip format, when the deductors or the taxpayers wanted to convert that into a PDF, they were facing issues, they're facing errors. So how do they resolve this, or what are the steps they need to take to avoid this?
See, the most important, the most common reason for this error is that they are not using the latest PDF converter utility, or their Java version is not the latest Java version which is being used in the machines. So, they need to uninstall the PDF converter utility and the Java version and update them. The latest and PDF converter utilities updates are available from time to time, and they can also access them from request downloads option available in their traces portal.
Okay. Ma'am, now moving on to refunds. What is the process for claiming refunds due to a certain TAN?
Subhash, first I would like to clarify that deductor can apply for excess TDS paid refund from financial year 2007-8 onwards only. It is mandatory to register for a digital signature on the portal for availing the refund. Another important requirement for this is that all the statements in which the challan has been used are processed. After that, once these basic conditions are fulfilled, then the deductor can use the functionality for furnishing Form 26B, which is available on the login of the Traces website. Then this functionality is available for all challans. Like I said earlier, this is available for all challans from financial year 2007-8 onwards, where the deposit date is after 1/4/2010 for all sections except 195. In case of 195, this functionality is available from financial year 2007-8 onwards, and any other refund which is required for challans deposited prior to 1/4/2010 and for earlier years other than years earlier to 2007-8, they have to approach the TDS assessing officer for issue of the refund.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, in respect of an online refund request that deductors file, what are the things that a deductor needs to ensure before filing such a request online?
So, there are certain requirements there. One is they should not have any outstanding demand against the TAN. There should not be any demand outstanding against the PAN of the associated with the TAN. And there should be no outstanding demand against associated TANs for that particular PAN. So, a PAN may have multiple TANs. So, there should be no demand outstanding against any of the TANs associated with the PAN. This last requirement is relaxed for PSUs.
Okay. Ma'am, and next I would want to ask you in respect of the refund request, for the processing of the refund, do the deductors need to file anything before the TDS assessing officer? Is there any such requirement?
A signed copy of Form 26B, a cancelled check or copy of passbook, a copy of PAN or ITR of the deductor, and an undertaking that no demand is outstanding against the PAN of the deductor, which should be duly verified by the PAN assessing officer. These documents have to be submitted before the TDS assessing officer within 14 days of generating the request on Traces portal.
Okay. Ma'am, and are there any scenarios where a refund ticket is rejected by an assessing officer?
One of the TDS assessing officer can reject a TDS refund ticket if the documents are uploaded after submitted to the AO after 14 days, or if there is a demand pending. Like I mentioned earlier, there should be no outstanding demands against the TAN or associated TAN or against the PAN of the deductor. So if in any of these scenarios a demand is pending, the refund request can be rejected.
So that was part 2 of our TDS session for our deductors. In this part of today's TDS session for deductors, we had discussed many specific technical issues in respect of filing of TDS statements, short deductions and refunds. I'm sure that this will help our deductors watching the session from across the country. In the next episode on TDS, we shall be bringing to you discussions on topics of most relevance to our taxpayers. Please do share this video to those who you think might be benefited from the content. Until the next time, thank you and Jai Hind.